Hello everyone, my name is Benji Jimenez and I am from the group 4. Today we're going to discuss about learners with difficulty communicating, and we will also learn about the characteristics of children with special education. First, let me introduce to you what are communication disorders. A student with communication disorders will find it difficult to interact at school as they have persistent problems with language, speech, and hearing. These disorders can range from stuttering and autism spectrum disorders to sensory ailments like blindness and deafness, and can vary greatly from child to child. As further explained by Psychology Today, communication disorders can negatively affect their vocabulary, ability to formulate sentences, voice quality, flow of speech, and interpretation of sounds, to name just a few symptoms. Now, there are two types of communication disorders, namely the speech impairment and language impairment. Impairment now is a communication disorder such as stuttering, impaired articulation, and language or voice impairment. Such disorders are significant enough that they can adversely affect a student's academic performance. There are three general categories of speech impairment, namely fluency disorder, voice disorder, and articulation disorder. These disorders actually were discussed in the prior discussion about learners with difficulty communicating. Next, we have language impairment. People with language disorders have difficulty expressing themselves and understanding what others are saying. This is unrelated to hearing problems. Please take note of that. Language disorder, formerly known as receptive expressive language disorder, is common in young children. Since we're already acquainted with what are communication disorders, so now as special needs education teachers, or we are going to hold a large crowd of children, and we might be noticing some peculiarities with our learners. So here are some classroom strategies that we can apply for children with communication difficulties. First, First, for children who have difficulties understanding, there are several reasons why children may have difficulty in listening and understanding in the classroom environment. They may find it difficult to pay attention to the background noise of the classroom. They may have difficulty taking in and remembering instructions. They may not understand question words such as who, what, where, why, or how. They may not understand new vocabulary words or may have difficulty categorizing words at all. They may also not understand words that can have more than one meaning. So we have to be careful on the words or introducing vocabulary words to them. What we can do to help a child in our class. To teach them attention and listening, if a child has difficulty listening to instructions or is easily distracted, here are some things to try. First, make sure you have the child's attention before speaking to them. Remind the child to use good listening skills and praise them when they do. Give instructions before an activity rather than during it where possible, particularly if doing practical exercises. We must also encourage the child to repeat back instructions to ensure that they have heard you. Let's go to understanding of spoken language. Take note that these are now the characteristics of children with special education. Some children find it difficult to take in and remember large amounts of information, so we must speak slowly and pause between key phrases. Use short, simple sentences, be concise and clear. For example, pencils down. Emphasize keywords when giving information. For example, red group, stop working. Slow down your rate of talking. Research shows this is a very effective strategy for children with comprehension difficulties. There are also some children that can have difficulties interpreting implied or ambiguous meanings. Think about the language you use in the classroom and try to avoid using language or phrases which might be misinterpreted or have several meanings. Use unambiguous talk where possible. So, jargon or any unfamiliar words is a big no no if you notice that some of your learners are having difficulties understanding or interpreting implied or ambiguous meanings. Next, there are also some children in our class that we can find that they are having difficulties to produce grammatically correct sentences. Now, if a child says a sentence using incorrect grammar, repeat back their sentence, modeling the correct grammar to be used. For example, if the child says, the boy eated his lunch, we can say as a teacher, that's right, the boy ate his lunch. See, we are modeling the correct sentence now. This allows the child to learn what they should have said without feeling embarrassed or under pressure. There are some children that can have difficulties with naming items or finding the right word at times. If you notice that the word that has been provided makes the child with forced alternatives to help them find it, for example, is it a giraffe or a leopard? You could also cue the child by giving them the beginning sound of the word. For example, it's a leopard, something like that. There are also children that we may find, or they also find it difficult to sequence their thoughts to produce coherent sentences or stories. We can ask the child questions to clarify what they are talking about. For example, the who, what, where, why, and how questions to make clarifications so that you'll be on the same page with your student. As teachers, we promote inclusive education, especially for those students who have special needs. Now, how can we support our students in the classroom? We need to be a good model. As a teacher, you are seen as a source of inspiration and motivation for your students. Indeed, a study conducted by Harvard Graduate School of Education researchers found that a student's attitude and behavior is directly influenced by a teacher's effectiveness. This holds especially true for students who have difficulty communicating, as they look up to you as speech models. Simply put, you can show them that good communication skills are beneficial. To be a good model, you should always remember to speak slowly and clearly. Moreover, try to observe if they're following your behavior. For instance, if your student answers with just one word or a phrase, try asking them to improve their answer with a complete sentence. As teachers, may it be in special education or in the mainstream education, patience is a virtue. Patience is a skill that teachers practice with their students. However, when educating students with communication disorders, being patient can make all the difference for their learning success. From speaking too fast or too slow to repeating words or staying silent for too long, it's important to recognize what challenges they'll face at the start so you can guide them to move forward instead of being frustrated and stuck. To this end, give them more time to formulate their thoughts and put them into words during a class discussion. But try not to interrupt them by finishing their sentences. Instead, you should maintain eye contact to let them know you are supporting them. Next, we can also use technology to our advantage. With today's technology, teachers can certainly make use of the latest digital tools to help their students. Chances are your students have an iPad they use for fun, but why not turn this into an educational tool too? While encouraging your students to use their iPads may sound counterintuitive at first, this tech tool enhances the visuals and auditory responses during their learning experience. Dr. Megan Goodman, an ASHA certified speech language pathologist and director of Maryville University's Communication Sciences and Disorders degree program, was one of the pioneers for using iPads in the classroom. Speaking to the Lawrence World Journal, she said, they love the cool factor of it. They look forward to speech therapy. When they see me coming into class, they are like, oh yes, she's got the iPad. Moreover, colors, sounds, and animations can keep your students engaged with the material and therefore respond better in the classroom. Case in point, our integrating technology in the classroom toolkit utilizes assistive technology. But so sad here in the Philippines, we are not that so open and we don't have the means to provide technology, especially in the far-flung areas where we need special education. So that is why we need to address that with the government. Next, we must also build the confidence of our students. For many students, having difficulty with communication skills also means having lower levels of self esteem. That's true. After all, the classroom isn't exactly an ideal setting, as other kids might have a tendency to tease or even bully. For those students who have special needs and are in the mainstream education, this will be very difficult for them. Not to mention, we've previously shared how students with emotional and behavioral disorders may act out when they feel unfairly treated. Thankfully, as their teacher, you can help create a safe environment for your students with learning disabilities. Now, that ends our report, and I hope that you were able to learn something from our discussions and you were able to have some tips on how to handle children or how to deal with their characteristics with special education. Since we are talking about what inclusive education is and what it is not, so it is simply we cannot diagnose, but we can intervene or we can spot some peculiarities of our students and further address them with, of course, the experts and professionals. So much for that. I hope that you enjoyed the video and I hope that you're keeping yourself safe, healthy, and warm all the time, wherever you are in the world. Good day.